Hey, what's up, everybody? We're here again with the Energy is Love podcast, and we got to go through our sponsors real fast. As always, we're sponsored by the Crystal Water Float Spa, which is located out in Twila, Utah. If you guys haven't floated yet, now's really the time. There's sensory deprivation tanks, which they fill up with 300 gallons of water, and then they go ahead and dump 1,200 pounds of Epsom salt into that tank, and that creates just the most unique environment for you to lay back and float for an hour. Google it, look it up. There's plenty of videos out there online. You can learn about floating. It's an incredible experience. We just like to thank Crystal Water for all that they do to support the podcast. We also need to thank our sponsor, The Bryman, for supporting small businesses for the past 10 years. As always, if you want to become a sponsor of the podcast, get a hold of us. Let us know. We're always looking for new sponsors and new ways to keep this energy going with the podcast. You can contact us online at Facebook. You can also email us at energyislovepodcast@gmail.com. If you're not looking to necessarily become a sponsor, but you just like what we're doing and you want to support it, we have a GoFundMe account set up. You can go find that on our Facebook page as well, or if you just go to GoFundMe, it's The Energy is Love. That's the campaign for the GoFundMe account. Like I said, if you like the podcast and you like what we're doing, please, by all means, feel free to donate so we can keep going and keep spreading the love. On today's show, we have Mark Johnson. Mark Johnson is the owner of Westside Jiu-Jitsu up in Ogden, Utah. He's a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's also an English teacher. He's been teaching school for the past 21 years. I really enjoyed sitting down with Mark. He's got a lot of really good insight. He's come up with this year of fear that he's been going through this last year, and you can find Mark on Facebook, and we'll obviously link to it and everything like that. But thanks for listening, and I hope you guys enjoy the episode. So remember, energy is love, and here we go. Energy is love.
The Energy is Love podcast.
Energy is love.
The Energy is Love podcast.
The podcast for the universe. Energy is love. That's perfect. Today, my guest is Mark Johnson. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me.
Yeah, man, of course.
So I wanted to talk to you today about a couple of different things. Hopefully we can get into a lot of different stuff. But first off, for the people that don't know you, give them a little bit about who you are.
All right. Well, my name is Mark. I'm an English teacher, high school. I'm also a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu black belt, a dad, trying to write some stuff. But mostly I'm a teacher and a dad and a jiu-jitsu man.
How long you been teaching?
I've been teaching since 95, so that's about 21 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you still liking it?
Yeah, it's good. I love the kids are good. They never change, you know what I mean? They don't. They're just 15-year-olds or 16-year-olds or 17-year-olds, and they're always that, you know. At least when I have them. So the kids are awesome.
What do you teach?
I teach English, creative writing, and also a communications class through Weber State University at the high school.
Yeah, and you teach at Ogden High.
Ogden High, yeah.
Well, if you've been teaching for 21 years, then you're probably getting ready to retire or get away from it.
Well, you're supposed to retire at 30 years.
30.
Yeah, but I'm not going to make that. So this will be my last year.
And with that, are you excited? Are you nervous?
Oh, yeah, man. No, I'm excited. Of course, you know, a little apprehensive, just the unknown kind of thing. But other than that, you know, no, I'm looking forward to it. I'm ready.
You're ready for that next chapter?
Oh, yeah. Ready for it.
And you said you write a little bit. I've read some of your stuff, but tell me, I think you've published a few books, right?
Right. They're ebooks, which I'm good with, you know. They're jiu-jitsu books, Jiu-Jitsu on the Brain and Borrowing the Master's Bicycle. And then I did a little kid's book called Jiu-Jitsu Jack, which I like, you know, of course. But those are the few that I've done, but I'm looking at writing some more, which I really enjoy.
So for you, why write? Like, what is it about writing that you find?
Oh, man, it's a way to analyze for sure. You know, you get to break things down. You get to take it back, that little memory. You get to dissect it, you know, kind of check things out, retell it. Sometimes when you retell it, it's better than what really happened. I'm not saying you change it, but in your mind, you're like, oh, yeah, that wasn't that bad, you know. And then you get a chance to look at it from a different perspective, you know, whatever happens. And I really like that about writing. You know, you can examine things, and it makes it clear. You know, clarity is a big thing, at least for me. And I like that chance to look at stuff and make it clear, at least to myself. You know,
is it something that you've done your whole life, or?
Not really. I've always liked writing, drawing. You know, but I haven't really written anything where I'm like, oh, okay, like. There's a quote, I don't know who said it, but, you know, writing is thinking. It is. It really, really is. And so if you write, it's just a chance to rethink. And that part I haven't done until recently, maybe the last 5 years or so. But I've always written stories and stuff. My mom shows me like, oh, look at this. I wrote a book about a wolf named Brownwood. I have no idea where that came from, but I was like, 5 years old, and she still had it. You know how moms are.
Yeah.
They keep your stuff, which is awesome. And I read it, and it was terrible, but I like the title, Brownwood.
Brownwood the Wolf.
Yeah.
It is a good title.
Yeah.
You got to do a sequel.
Yeah, well, I probably should fix the first one a little bit. But
So when it comes to like spirituality in the realm of all that kind of stuff, writing's really important, and it's one of the things when I work with clients and when I talk to people and anytime you kind of interact with anybody, I'm always trying to push people towards journaling.
Yeah.
And people are really, if they're not doing it already, they're really like kind of, like they just don't want to sit down and write.
Yeah,
people try to avoid it as much as they can.
It's funny that you mentioned that because the way I write is a journaling style. It's like a daily or little snippets of life. It's not just, you know, sit down in chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. It's like maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs, and then this happened 3. You know, that's my style of writing, and I like it because it's like a daily thing, and I don't have to take this big chunk of my life and break it down. I can just take a day and look at it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. Yeah, this is what went down. This is what I feel about it. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not sure what I feel about this. And then I write it down. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm mad. Or I'm happy. Or that wasn't too bad, you know. So,
like you said, a chance to rethink it.
Yeah, rethink it, man. Rehash it. Look at it again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I follow you on Facebook, and I mean, I'm assuming that's where you're doing a lot of your writing is just
Yeah,
posting
for sure.
stuff. And,
Yeah. I like it. I dig it.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's Mark Westside Johnson is my Facebook page, illustrator, writer. And I haven't been drawing as much as I want to, but I just do my daily thing on there, you know. And what happened with my first jiu-jitsu book and what's happening with the book I'm working on now, which is going to be called Hug Life, A Year Without Fear, is I just write every day. And then before you know it, you're like, oh, I got enough for a book. I'm going to put this into a book.
See, that Year Without Fear, like that, I think has been a really, really, for me, it's been a really neat thing to follow, a really cool thing to kind of.
It's been neat for me too, actually. Yeah.
What was the whole idea behind that? How did that come about?
Well, when I was growing up, I haven't been afraid of things all the time. Afraid is probably not the best word, but sometimes I noticed I wasn't doing things. I would talk myself out of doing things because I was like, you know, and all these reasons would come up and all these visions of me failing or doing something that I didn't want to, looking silly or whatever. And so I wouldn't do stuff, you know. And I was just sitting there and I was like, dude, no, you're going to do stuff. And so I said, okay, I'm going to take all my irrational fears. You know, the regular fears you can't mess with. I mean, there's a bear, you're going to run or whatever you're supposed to do, stay still or whatever. You're going to be afraid. Yeah. And that's a good afraid, you know. But, you know, not taking your T-shirt off when you're 12 at the swimming pool because you're chubby is not a good fear. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. And although I'm a man now, those kind of things follow me. You know, they follow you, I think. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to start taking these things on one at a time and writing about it. So that's basically what it is.
Do you remember what the first one was?
The first thing I wrote?
Well, the first thing that you kind of looked at and thought, you know what, this is the fear I'm going to face.
I know exactly what it was. I was going out with this girl, great, wonderful, helped me a ton, just kind of discovering stuff myself and eating and all kinds of just cool things. Mm-hmm. You know, in a relationship, you share those things. And so I'm very grateful for that. But I had a girl that I was seeing before her, and I'd never talked to her because I didn't want to upset my current girlfriend, which is, you know, not my current one because I have one now. Anyways.
But the girlfriend at the time.
Yeah, the girlfriend at the time. So I didn't want to upset her, so I wouldn't talk to this other girl. And just a cordial, you know, hey, I just wouldn't reach out or anything. And I thought, that's just dumb. That's silly. This is a person, you know, we didn't have a really long relationship, but still, you know, you share a relationship with somebody. You don't just cut them off. That's wrong, in my opinion. And so I told my ex-girlfriend that, hey, I want to, you know, talk to so-and-so. I'm just going to say what's up, see how she's doing, you know. Mm-hmm. And I was afraid to do that because I thought, oh, man, she's not going to handle this well. She's going to break up with me. And that's exactly what happened.
Really?
Yeah. Which I'm cool with, you know. I'm like, you know, I can't control other people, you know, and I don't want to. And so I ended up talking to my other friend, and that was cool. And then my ex-girlfriend, we broke up, which was fine. You know, it sucked, but at the same time, we're still friends. I talked to her, you know, and I'm with somebody else now. I'm not that kind of person, but it just kind of
just kind of worked out that way.
Yeah. But the first thing was I value people, and I didn't want to cut them off. Mm-hmm. And I was afraid that if I didn't, something would happen with my relationship, which it did, but it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, man. It was like something that had to be done. To be honest with myself, that's something I had to do. And whatever the consequences were, I was willing to face them. That was the first thing. And that's what I did. And I don't regret it at all. Not one bit. So that was number one.
That was number one. Yeah. You got that one out of the way.
Yep. That started out right. It was like, bam.
And then it just kind of expanded, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everything, because it seems like every time I check in or every time I see your stuff pop up on Facebook, like you're doing cool shit.
Yeah. I was like, I'm going to do some stuff.
Yeah. So what's some of the fun stuff you've had a chance to do?
All right. So what happened was when I was with my ex-girlfriend, she's very super active, you know, outdoors girl. And so she's like, oh, you should try running. And I'm like, oh, you know, at the time I lost some weight, but I was still 3 bills. I was, I don't know, 320 maybe. I don't know. I was big.
Yeah.
Bigger. And I hate running. Or I did. I love it now. But I was like, nah, I ain't going to run. But then I told myself, no, okay, if she invites me to do anything, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to make any excuses. I'm going to do it. So she's like, let's try running. So I tried it. It was terrible. I couldn't even make I think it was a mile.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got heartburn. I was dying. And then my buddy, who unfortunately committed suicide years back, there was a 3K run for him. Not 3K, 5K run for him. And I told his dad, okay, I'm going to run this thing. And so I started running, and then I went back that day, the day I couldn't finish the mile, and I said, I'm running a mile. I don't care. And my ego was like, man, you running a mile. I don't care. You doing this. So I went back, and I made it.
You made the mile.
Yeah, yep, I made it. And so I was super happy about it. And then some little voice in me was like, if you would have believed all your excuses and been afraid to try, you wouldn't have done it. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up running the 5K, 3 miles or whatever, 3.1 or whatever it is. And I made it. I ran it in my uniform, my Jiu Jitsu gi.
Yeah.
To to kind of for my buddy because he was my student.
5K in a gi.
Yeah, it felt great.
Yeah, I bet it did.
But I made it, and I was like, those kind of things. That was a little thing for me, but it turned out to be a huge thing. Because then a friend of mine was like, "Let's run you know how things kind of build. Let's run a half marathon." I'm like, "What? I just barely made 3 miles. How am I gonna?" But I told myself I'm gonna say yes to everything, as long as it's safe or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say yeah. So I was like, yes. I didn't really mean it, but I just said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. So weird things happen, and it turns out a friend of mine is the director of the Maui Marathon. So I was writing at Maui Marathon.
Maui.
So I was writing about it, and he saw it on Facebook, and he was like, "Hey, why don't you just do the Maui Marathon instead?" And I was like, "Okay, I just ran a 5K, yo. That's only 3 miles, And so it was months away, probably 6 months, maybe, I don't know. And once again, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't know if I can finish. I might die. I don't care. I'm just going to do it. So I said yes. Things worked out. Somebody suggested I do a GoFundMe because I didn't have enough money to get to Hawaii and all that. And my friends were like, yeah. So anyways, I made it there. I ran the Maui Marathon, which was nuts because it had an 8 hours was the deadline. And I made it in 7 hours and 57 minutes.
Nice.
Yeah, I was so happy. And there were 742 runners or something like that, and I was 741. But I was, man.
But you ran a marathon.
I ran a marathon. Well, mostly ran a marathon.
You made it through a marathon.
I survived a marathon. Yeah. I finished a marathon.
How was Hawaii?
Hawaii was awesome, but the thing is, since my buddy's the director, I didn't go for vacation. I was helping him set up for the mountain marathon, so I was sweating my butt off. Stuff. Yeah, which was cool, because he was like, "Man, you can just stay with me," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm down." So I went, and even better than just sitting on my butt and being on the beach, which I did for a couple of days. Just the fact of helping him, meeting all the people. I met this guy who was a correctional facility worker guard. Yeah. And his crew of inmates were helping with the set up the marathon. So I worked with that crew, and it was awesome. And the guard was a big Polynesian dude, and he was like, "Yeah, I ran the marathon too." I'm like, "Yes." So you just kind of, I don't know. It's weird. If you say yes to a lot of things, good things happen, man.
Good things happen.
Yeah, for sure. If you're too afraid, if you're always like, no, I'm not going to do this, and then all these excuses, then you ain't going to do it. You're not going to do it.
And you stay stuck.
And then you're stuck. Yeah, 100%.
And then you sit back and wonder, how the hell am I stuck? What's going on?
Yeah, or what if I should have done that? Like the regret. I have my regret scale is low. Because I don't say no if I can help. I mean, sometimes I can't because I'm doing something else, or I said, okay, I'll help you move, and I can't do that, or whatever. But if I can do it, I'm gonna. And that was huge. That was a huge. And then I realized how many times I said no to things, and it was all like fear-based stuff, like I don't want to do this because I might look bad, like I said before. And I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. And that's huge.
That is huge.
So anybody who wants to kind of venture out, just say yes all the time. Yeah. As long as it's somewhat safe. So, yeah, that Maui Marathon, and did some Ragnar stuff, running.
And you're running every day now, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Try to go like maybe 5 days a week, and I do some yoga. Probably at 5 days a week if I can get it.
What's your average run?
Between 3 and 6.
Nice.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
And see, isn't it nuts? Like I'm out of running in the sense of I used to do it for quite a while, and I really got into it and got really good. And I never ran like an official half marathon, but I ran the distance. And when I did that, I was like, holy cow. I never imagined, that I would ever be able to go that long.
It feels good, huh?
It does feel good. But, like, I mean, if you take yourself at the first day when you go running, like you said, you couldn't even finish a mile.
Right.
And now for you just go out in an average day is at least 3 miles.
Yeah. Yep. I one of my writings was, I just reread it. I was like, I made 4 miles today. It was like the most I've ever run. You know? And it was cool to look back and be like, oh yeah, it seems so far. It's not that long ago, but it seems really ancient. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so running stuff, and then, you get body conscious when you grow up, especially if you're fat or you're not the quote unquote normal, which is funny because no one wants to be normal, but unless they're not, and then they want to be. And
even the people that we label normal don't think they are, and they want to be something else.
They want to be something else for sure. So I've always been like super chubby, and I was like, man, every time I see a streaker on TV, I'd be like, dang, that dude or lady. I mean, they got, they got balls. They're doing their thing, So I got this thing called a snurfboard, and I went, it's like a snowboard, like a backcountry snowboard. Mm-hmm. You don't bind yourself in, you just stand on it. So anyways, I got naked and I rode it down a little hill, a bunch. I didn't fall. Thank the Lord. But I was like, yeah. And then my current girlfriend, Danielle, she took a picture. So I was like, I'm putting this on Facebook. I don't care. This is my ass, basically. Me going down big brown man going down a mountain at night, but you can still see it. So I was like, and part of my thing was, I don't care. I don't care. What's going to happen to me? And, I could get fired because your butt's on Facebook and you're a teacher, but, whatever. So I was like, put it on. So I put it up there, and then people were like, oh, man, we didn't need it. My sister, you didn't need to do that.
Nobody needs to see your ass on Facebook.
Nobody needs to see that. And I'm like, I know, but it wasn't really about that. It was about me embracing kind of like what I look like. Like, this is what I look like. And I'm going to do this. I don't care. And that's what it was about. It wasn't about anything other than that. And, I look at it, it's funny. I'm like, dang, I'm a big dude, man. I got a big old butt. But, and so the question was, what things have I done? And it's a bunch of little things, like going naked on a, backcountry snowboard, and big things like doing a Maui marathon, but it all involves not limiting or not making excuses for myself. And even if I'm afraid, like I'm like, if that little thing pops up, I have this I think we have these voices in us that tell us, I want to protect us, It's kind of like your mom. They just wants to protect you all the time. Yeah. And it always pops up. And it's like, are you sure? It's my mom's voice too when I hear it. It's like, baby, are you sure you're gonna, And I have another little quiet voice that says, man, you're gonna do this, and that's the voice that's becoming louder and louder and louder. And I'm like, I listen to that voice. The other voice, I don't care about that voice. I rarely hear it anymore.
See, that whole concept, that whole thing you just described, because that's why I wanted to talk to you. Granted, this is the Energy is Love podcast, and it's all about spirituality, and it's bringing awareness to all this stuff. And, I mean, there's a whole aspect of all of that stuff that kind of gets really, I don't want to say out there or convoluted, but it can be viewed that way.
Sure.
For me, it's all just really basic, normal stuff.
Right.
And you have such a way of putting it and explaining it, and the fact is you're living it, even though... Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like that little voice that you're talking about, that quieter one that is really subtle and kind of hard to hear. Yeah. Like for me, that voice is the connection to the universe. Yeah, that's the voice that the universe is saying, dude, go do this.
See, that you're talking about the universe. I always thought it was connected to my nuts. Man, be brave, man. Have some courage. Do it, And... without being gross, if my nuts are connected to the universe, awesome, But
that's a good
that
thing.
Voice is there, for sure.
That's your intuition. That's your inner self.
That's it.
And like you said, the more you listened to it, now you hear it more.
That's all I hear.
Yeah.
I don't hear anything. The other thing's a whisper. I'm like, You know, I there's a difference between fear and caution. You know, I'm cautious. I don't do stupid things. Mm-hmm. You know, like I snowboard down this trail for 2 miles. Danielle and I hiked up this trail. It's just a walking trail. It's Wheeler's Canyon. And we snurfboarded down it. And it was awesome. But I wore a helmet, you know.
Yeah.
You know?
You're not stupid about it.
Yeah, I'm not dumb. I'm so, cautious. I have a extra spare in my car. It's not working right now, but that's okay. It's, there's a difference. I'm not dumb, but at the same time, I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm going to do this, whatever it is.
So have you found that, with running, with yoga, with all these little changes that you've been making, you're starting to see the ramifications and effects in that broader sense where, granted, you're dropping weight, so physically you're changing your body and things like that, which allows you to do even more.
Yeah.
So when you do hear that voice and it says something even a little bit crazier that you may not have been able to do a year ago because you were 50 or 75 pounds heavier, now you can do it.
For sure.
But what other, in what other ways do you find that your life is coming more kind of complete and in balance?
Mm-hmm. Man, I don't know. I think it's always balanced. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, even when, I was a slug a while ago, and even that there was a balance to that. I don't know how to explain it, but you just get used to it and you live it. But I decided that that's not what I wanted. And so I moved over to something that I thought I wanted, and it turns out, hey, you really did want this. This is good. But I think most of it, and I'm going to be honest about it, is movement. Like, if you're a chunky dude, you don't move that much, Yeah. And you find ways not to move. Like, okay, after work, I'm going to get, a couple of chili cheese dogs, a Slurpee. I'm going to watch, all the Mad Maxes or whatever. But I decided that I was going to get a bike and I was going to ride it every day. Yeah. And then as soon as I did that, I didn't have time for chili cheese dogs and Mad Max, marathons.
You're too busy out riding.
Yeah, because I'm riding my bike. And then the next thing you know, I'm quitting my cable. I'm like, $150? I don't even know. Quit my cable. Then I was going to bed earlier.
Sleeping better.
Yeah, because I wasn't watching cable till trying to watch a TV show that started at 11. Yeah. Didn't have that. So then I started getting up earlier. Then I'm like, damn, I got time to run before school. Okay, I'm going to run. Boom. And then all those little things started building, and then I had more energy. And then my ex-girlfriend really cooked healthy stuff, right? So I was exposed to that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try to eat pretty good. So I was eating better too. And all those things that I had so much energy, like, it was awesome. I was like, yeah. And then running, I just could think. Everything was clear when I was running. And then I'd just go back and I'd write about it. That's what I've been doing. So as far as balance goes, we're balanced when we're a lump on a log, Yeah. It's maybe not a good balance, but there's good things that happen and bad things that happen, and we live our life and we try to make things work. Right now, there's good things that happen and bad things that happen, and I try to make things work. But the difference is I feel like I can see everything better. I definitely feel better, and the energy is crazy right now. Like, good stuff. And then when you feel better, you're just a kind of person, I think. Even though I don't think I was ever mean to anybody, I'm just like, I want to help somebody. Even in just a little way, I don't care. I want to do something for somebody because I've been focusing on myself, with the writing, the Year Without Fear thing. And that gets old really quick. And I think once you start to analyze yourself, you're like, okay, this is how I am. That's cool. I see how I am. But now what?
Now what?
Yeah. So.
So now you got to reach out and you can start having more people.
And it's just little things,
stuff.
just tiny. Like a friend of mine's opening a used bookstore, so I'm like, oh man, we're gonna have a book drive. So my jiu-jitsu school will be like, all right, bring your books. You know, it's something little, you know, tiny, but still wasn't about me. You know,
Yeah,
it was about her.
That was nice. How long has your school been open?
It's been my jiu-jitsu school 2002.
2002.
So, yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah,
and now I'm gonna try to run it as a business, and we'll see what happens. You know. I'm not afraid of it, but I realistically, it's probably going to be a struggle for a little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not afraid of that. Struggle's good.
And how long have you been training in jiu-jitsu?
Since 1998. So
what's that? That's almost...
I'm an English major. That's too much math. You got to add stuff.
Like 20 years, almost 20 years?
Something like that.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
So let's talk about jiu-jitsu for a little bit, because that's how we know each other.
Yeah.
That's how we met. I used to live up here in Layton.
Yeah.
Got into training and fighting and everything like that with Rich Layton, who you knew Rich, and that's how we met, was through jiu-jitsu. And I remember back in the day when I started jiu-jitsu, I don't remember how big I was. I was a big guy too. I've always been a big guy like you. And I started going, and little guys, like 145 guys, were just making me tap left and right, and I couldn't do anything.
Me too. I had the same experience.
Yeah, and it didn't piss me off like ego-wise. It was just like, damn it, I want to do better. Yeah. And so I trained and I trained and I trained, and like the first month of training, I dropped like 20 pounds. Yeah. Just kept going at it. And I remember probably around the time we started to meet, or, you know, because there was a handful of times that you would come to wherever we were training, or we would come up to the high school, or whatever the case may be. And I remember thinking I was doing pretty good. Yeah. And I was kind of crossed over that hump of where you're just learning everything. And I was doing pretty good. And then I met Mark, and I was like, shit.
Everybody does that. I do that too, man. I'm like, oh, I thought I was all right, but no. It's a good way of humility, man.
For sure.
Yeah, you get humbled. Well, that's the thing. The funny thing is, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but in jiu-jitsu, there's not a ton of big dudes that do it, that stay with it, actually. And I think it's because, and I could be wrong, but I think it's because of an ego. And when a 145-pound dude, we probably got beat by the same guy, a 145-pound dude takes on a man that's 300 pounds, I think, I can handle. Yeah. You know, I used to be in the grocery store, and I'd look at people like men, and I'd be like, I could whip this dude's ass. Or he might be, you know, I would be constantly measuring people when I would see them. Like, okay, if we got in a fight, you know, what would happen? You know what I mean? It's weird. I don't even do that anymore. It's not.
That's a guy thing, I think. I think everybody goes through that phase.
Yeah, I don't, it's not, I'm just like, I don't care about it. But you think you're a certain way, you know, I can handle myself, for example. Then you get on the mat, and this little dude whoops you and makes you quit. And then you have to reassess. You're like, maybe I'm not as tough as and then you take that home at night, and you do one of two things. You're like, okay, I'm going back. I'm going to learn this. Or you're like, I don't feel, you know, you make excuses. You never come back. And so I've seen that throughout the years. A lot of tough guys, big dudes, they start, they get whooped, and then they don't come back.
And then you never see them again.
But the guys that come back excel, and then they're eventually doing what the 145er does, but in a 280-pound body. Yeah. And they're deadly. You're like, ooh, I wish you would have quit, because now I got to go against you all the time. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I think it's ego. Ego's a big thing. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens. You either go home and you don't come back, or you come back and you learn and you grow. That's how you grow. So,
what were you doing when you learned jiu-jitsu, like when you first came across it?
So I was teaching. It was probably 95, so a few years. I was in it for a few years. Mm-hmm. And I heard that there's a Brazilian in Salt Lake, and I was teaching jiu-jitsu, and I had just seen an old copy of UFC 1. So I was like, I got to try this. So I finally got around to it, you know, a lot of like internal debating, you know, because you're putting yourself out there, man. You know, you you don't know what to expect. And
all those fears that you now face.
Yeah, and then you have all these visions that none of them are true, but we just make them up to scare ourselves. And but I finally got on the mat, and same thing happened. There was a guy, 145, whooped me pretty good. He probably made me tap 3 times in a minute.
Yeah, that's the worst part is when you're like, oh, well, this was a fluke. And then 15 seconds later, son of a...
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same move. I'm like, oh, man. And I would try it. I was like, okay, I'm going to try. And I'm just going to try my hardest. I really did. I was honest about it. And I couldn't. Yeah, he got me. So anyways, I got on the mat. Pedro Sauer and then Rich Layton, because he was up here in Ogden. So I started training, and I just liked it, man. Because every day, and now that I think about it, now that you mention it, I was facing my fears even back then.
Yeah.
You know, because every day you put yourself out there. When we trained, it was harder. Like when you and I were doing it, it was battle, man. It was gladiator kind of stuff. Now it's still tough, but you know, you're not going to war every day when you go to class, you know, you come home and, you know, you chip tooth and
see, that's funny because like you said, like when I got it, like when I was really heavy into it and training hard, we trained hard.
Yeah, it's hard. It was hard.
And that's the way I liked it.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, no,
for me, if we weren't
that.
Accidentally slipping and catching each other with an elbow here and there or doing something, then you weren't rolling hard enough.
Right. Yeah.
And now you train with guys and it's like
they're all soft.
Yeah.
They're still choking the hell out of you, but they're doing it like Mr. Rogers style. Like, wonderful day in the neighborhood or whatever he says. But it's a lot nicer. And I wouldn't change the way I came through it. I like the smashing, you know, because now I know what that's like, and so I'm so much more gentle now. But I have the underlining, you know, if you want to smash, I can bring it. You know? I already did that. You know, I know what that's all about. So.
Do you think that? I mean, obviously, jiu-jitsu and everything's played a really, really big role in your life.
Yeah, for sure.
But like, do you see any parallel or correlation between? And you may not call it a spiritual journey, but I'm going to call it a spiritual journey. But the spiritual journey that you're on now and the way that you're kind of expanding and changing, do you see how jiu-jitsu's played a role in that, kind of led you up to this point or laid the groundwork?
Yeah, it's a big thing. I keep coming back to fear, but fear was big, like for me anyway. And the reason I started jiu-jitsu is because I wasn't sure if I could handle myself in a fight or not. That's the whole reason I started. I'd have these visions, you know, I'd be out with the girl or whatever, and like, oh, if this dude did this, could I handle it, you know? And I would carry that around with me, just being afraid, like, because I wasn't sure. And then I started doing jiu-jitsu, and I was like,
did you grow up fighting or anything?
Not really. I mean, the kid stuff, we scrapped, you know. I've had a handful. And as a matter of fact, when I went to college, this scared the hell out of me. When I was in college, I got in a fight with a teammate because I played at Utah State football. And I don't even remember why we fought, but we got down a little bit. And I was on top of him, and he was holding my hands. He had like a death grip on. I couldn't get my hands right. I just wanted to punch him in the face. I'm not like that anymore, but I was. And so I bit him in the chest. Bit him like a hunk of skin. It was not good.
Take the chunk out of him?
Yeah. And I remember spitting out the chunk of his
flesh,
pec, and it was between a t-shirt and my mouth. You know, and I was like, dude, what the hell is, that was not cool. And I was mad, and I could have made all kinds of excuses of why, but you know, I just sat there after I won, by the way. And I just thought, no, this is not how you treat, you can be mad, we can fight like men, but I crossed the line, and I didn't like that. And so when I was taking jiu-jitsu, I was like, I want to learn something where I have a level of violence. I don't know if that makes any sense. In other words, I want to be able to protect myself, but I don't want to kill somebody. I don't want to bite them. I don't want to poke their eye out. I don't want to make them lose all their teeth. But I wanted them to know that they need to stop because I can bring it up a level if I need to. And that's how jiu-jitsu was for me. It had levels. It had, this might sound cheesy, but it was compassionate fighting, you know, like I'm not going to hurt you, but I'm going to let you know that you need to stop.
Yeah.
You're going to have all your teeth. You're going to have all your flesh. You can still see after we're done. We can even be friends, but I'm going to let you know that, hey, you're going too far. And so I really liked that about it. So I was doing it for a couple months and I felt really good. Once I started doing jiu-jitsu, I stopped looking at dudes in the store being like, I can whip his ass, or, I just stopped that.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't afraid. I think that's what it was. I wasn't afraid. There's a jiu-jitsu guy who says, if a guy comes up to me, he's like a 3-year-old. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to, hit a 3-year-old. I'm not going to use my jiu-jitsu on him because he's little. I can beat him. And that's exactly, when I read that, I was like, that's exactly how I felt. So I'd go to a bar or whatever after I started learning jiu-jitsu, and things that would normally be a fight, like if you accidentally knock somebody's beer over, or, you just do some dumb thing and you just start to brawl. But that wasn't happening anymore. So I went to a bar with a friend of mine. He knocked this guy's beer over, and my friend was ready to fight, and this guy was ready to fight too. I recognized him too. He's a gang member, dude. He would have got killed. My friend would have got murdered. But I just stopped him and was like, hey, my friend, he's drunk. Sorry, let me buy you a beer. Mm-hmm. And that was it. Boom, done. I wasn't afraid of this dude. There's no way he was gonna whip mommy. I had probably a blue belt by then, and I was like, man. But I was thinking, I don't want to get dirty. I don't want to fight in this bar. This guy just lost his beer. I would be mad too, So I bought him a beer. It was fine. Done. And that kind of mentality that, I don't need to fight you, that came from jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. And then that whole idea of, not hurting people. I already had that because I feel like I'm a kind person anyway. But it was escalated. It's even better now. Like there's one thing to be able to fight, but then there's another thing to not want to. Mm-hmm. I don't even want to. So even my school, like we used to compete. We compete all the time. Compete. Now I'm just like, if you guys want to compete, that's cool. Yeah. But I just want to do jiu-jitsu all the time. Joke my friends and laugh about it. And, get better.
Yeah.
So
school's going good. Everything's going well.
I got a week left. 1 week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then got the summer, and then I'm on my own. So yeah, you took the sigh for me because you know what it's like.
Yeah. What's that big plan for you?
Well, I'm just going to run my school and write. I should be all right. We'll see. And do some private lessons and, the kind of stuff I couldn't do with school because I didn't have the time.
Yeah.
Run some day classes. People seem pretty excited about that. So, and I want to make my school, it's a jiu-jitsu school, but it's like a people school. You know what I mean? Like a growing school, like someone who doesn't go to church, where you can kind of like find yourself and challenge yourself and face your fears and, laugh with people. And it's not too serious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not murdering your friend. You're just playing with them and having fun.
So I have found in my own stuff and the way that I, kind of move through life where I may have an idea or an intention or something that I want to do, like a direction that I want to go. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I start to move in that direction, if I try too hard or if I, start to focus too much or force it too much, it gets all jacked up.
Yeah, it won't work,
and it just doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
And
right.
I mean, that was the, obviously we can draw that parallel to life in general and the way you can move through life. But so in your mind, like, I'm sure you've probably got ideas for what you want to do and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But are you just going to be able to sit back and relax and let it go?
I guarantee that because that's a lesson I learned from growing up. And, sometimes you don't really recognize the lessons until you're far away from them.
Yeah.
Like things that happened to me years and years ago, I'm just processing them now through like writing, for example. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. So one of the things that I know is, I can plan this, but it's not going to turn out like I plan it. Mm-hmm. So why hold on to that? Because we're very creative, right? Our imagination is crazy. We can make a world in our mind and live there and be comfortable. Yeah. But what happens is we make that little world, and then when it doesn't equal to what really happens, we get upset. Like, okay, this weekend I'm going to go out or I'm going to go running, and then something happens and then you can't do it. And then a lot of us are pissed off about it. We're like, damn, I want to go running. Yeah. But you can't. Well, that thing about going running is just in your mind. You made that shit up. You saw yourself doing that. Yeah, I'm going to do this. But, no, that's just a vision that you had. That's not real life. Real life is what you're doing right this minute,
Yeah, right.
I'm not going to that because my furnace broke or the plumbing's messed up and I got to fix it. Uh-huh. That's what it is. So I don't even, how you go somewhere and you're like, okay, it's going to be like this. Mm-hmm. And then you make this whole beautiful story in your head. I don't even do that anymore. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to go running on Saturday. I hope I can do it. There's a possibility that I can't.
And then you're good with whatever outcome.
I'm good with whatever happens, man, because sometimes what happens is better.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And if I'm really stuck holding on to this thing that I just made up, then I don't have an opportunity to do something better or different or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, that's another thing. I don't even make those stories up anymore. I just don't.
Just let life unfold.
Yeah, I just have an ideal of what I want to do. I'm like, okay, I kind of want to run this jiu-jitsu school. I might be doing something else, digging ditches in Hawaii, maybe. I don't know. I would like to try it and see what happens, but I'm not going to hold on to it. I'm going to work towards it, and if I get diverted, and it's a good diversion, I'll take it. I'm not going to.
Do you think there are any? Do you think, because I have this idea or this philosophy in life that there's not really any bad, that it's all good, regardless of, we just label it good or bad, but for me, it's just all energy. It just all happens.
Oh, I like it, yeah.
And so it doesn't really matter. We might call this experience, or we might say that this was a negative or that this was a bad thing, and we get stuck in that spin of that, but really, it's just all the same stuff, and it's just how we move through it.
That's an old Taoist thing that I read one time, where it's not. It just says things aren't good and bad; they just are. And oh man, I read that, I was like, things we think are bad. Yeah, that's us. That's not. Can't put that on anything. Yeah, And so people I always say that, and they're like, what if your daughter got cancer? That's bad, And I'm like, okay, my daughter gets cancer, and I'm sad about that, because I have a vision of what her life should be. She should be happy, and she should be married, and she should, go to school and do all this. That's my vision. That's nothing. So if she gets cancer and she dies, she's not going to do any of that. That's hard, But that's not bad, because what if my daughter gets cancer, but if she didn't, maybe her boy she meets kills her, maybe something horrific happens to her, but it doesn't now because she's dealing with something else.
I had a really close friend of mine that I grew up with. Like, we grew up, a block away from each other and rode bikes together, playing and everything like that. And he just recently passed away from cancer last year.
Yeah, sorry, man.
But it was a really neat experience because he had it for like 10 years. And it was one of those cancers that they can't cure. Right. And watching his journey and watching his experiences, is because he's got 3 kids, he's married, he's got his wife, everything like that. But him and I would have conversations and things like that. Mm-hmm. And even towards the end, because eventually it got to that point where he knew, it was only a matter of time.
Yes.
Where it wasn't no longer, I was just kind of living with it and surviving it. It was getting down to the end. And I mean, he never, because he would talk about, and he would tell me often, he's like, he wouldn't change it. If he could go back and say, I can make a decision at some point and not have cancer in our life, he wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
And all the experiences that they got to have and the relationship that it had with him and his wife and his kids. And then you got to look at, how are his kids now going to move through life because of that experience of their dad having cancer and everything. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, that helped me, look at my life even more and be like, first off, I'm bitching and moaning about insignificant things, but really just that idea and that concept that there isn't good or bad. It just is.
I believe that 100%. Yeah.
So tell me about Hug Life.
Okay. So just Hug Life is what I've been writing. It actually started with my friend, Q and I, and we went to a concert. And it was kind of rough. We were older, We're not we shouldn't be at any concert. Well, I shouldn't say that, but anyways, it was not our crowd.
Yeah.
The music was from our time period, Wu-Tang Clan or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. I can't remember, but the crowd was not our crowd. So anyways, there was a lot of young men, and they were being, loud and being young men and kind of disrespectful to some of the girls around us. And so Q he was going to snap a kid. But he didn't. But then we started talking about if we were rappers, right? And we're old, and if we were rappers, we would have a group, and it would be called Hug Life instead of Thug Life from Tupac. And we would just hug everybody and be positive and not talk bad and not talk, not about drugs and killing people and taking advantage of women. And we would do the opposite of it. And I just thought that was funny. I just thought that would be great. And then after the show, we would hug everybody who wanted to hug, and, just the opposite of that. And to me, that would be I like the peaceful warrior kind of person, like the super nice. A lot of jiu-jitsu guys are like this. They're super, super nice, but underneath they'll whoop you if they need to, So anyways, we were talking about that, and then I started writing soon after, and then that's what I wanted to title my writing, Hug Life, because that's what I feel like I want to do, embrace it, not be afraid of it. It's not drudgery. I'd be in the classroom sometimes, and I'd be like, oh man, when is this going to be over so I can do what I want to do, Because some days teaching, you got 40, 15-year-olds, you're like, oh, dude, I got to get out of here. But, and I thought, what? Okay, I have a certain amount of time on this world. Why am I trying to rush it by? I should be enjoying this hour with these kids. Yeah. I should be, frankly, hugging it. I should be like, yeah, I love this. And I decided, man, I can't. I'm not going to waste my time. You know what I mean? I'm not going to waste my time. I calculate I got about 10,000 days left before I die. From lucky or whatever, but I don't want to waste it. I don't want to be rushing, waiting for the summer to come or waiting for work to be over or, waiting for this and waiting for that, hoping that time is my life. Why would I want to rush that? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to want to be like, oh, I can't wait for no, I want to enjoy it. And so anyway, that's kind of the philosophy of it, where you're going to look at your life, the perspective of it, and it should be positive. And it should be something you want to do, not something you want to rush half of your life over. I want to hurry up and retire in 9 years.
So then you can start doing something
else.
No,
man, no. I'm not doing that. So that's kind of where it came from. Yeah. It's the ideal of being positive and embracing kind of like your life instead of trying to rush it and survive it. I don't want to survive it. I want to be happy with it.
That's a big thing. I mean, I think a lot of people that I meet, a lot of people I talk to are merely trying to do that, survive life.
Yeah, why? No. It's not about, I don't want to survive. I want to flourish, Mm-hmm. I don't know, it's cheesy. I don't care. I want to 10,000 days, I want to live them.
Yeah, each and every one.
I don't want to rush them by. As a teacher, you get the summer, right? 3 months. Uh-huh. That time flies by. It flies by so fast. 3 months in regular school, creeps. And it's all our mental, like,
For sure.
that's all us.
Yeah, the sun's still going around the same way.
It's the same amount of time. We're the ones who are making ourselves miserable. So I'm not going to do that. It's not.
So do you see, I mean, granted, it's just something that started with, a fun conversation between you and your buddy and stuff.
Yeah.
But is it something that you can see expanding even further? Because, I mean, like you said, there's a philosophy behind it. It's just a fun phrase. It's a catchphrase.
Yeah.
It's something you can throw on a T-shirt and a sticker or something like that.
Sure.
But do you see it expanding outside of that?
Oh, man. We were talking about the other day, and I was like, man, well, I want to make a movement out of this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's so many. Because I get people that they text me or they send me a message, and they're like, hey, man, Mark, I appreciate you putting this up because, I've been thinking about it or whatever. Mm-hmm. This is a chance because it's universal, man. My problems are your problems. Mm-hmm. That doesn't change. So if I talk about my problems, that's your problems too. We're the same.
Yeah.
So I think it could be bigger because we're all humans. What I write about is what everybody, at one point is going to be thinking because we're the same.
Yeah. And they they connect to it, right?
Yeah.
You're writing about running a marathon in Hawaii, and I loved those posts. I love that stuff that you wrote during that time period. That was some really good stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like, I haven't ran a marathon obviously in Hawaii, but there were bits and pieces and little tiny chunks of it that I'm like, damn, that just has so much profoundness for where I'm at right now in my life and things like that.
You're human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has it been neat for you to see that experience with people where, like, I'm sure you probably had a lot of friends and things like that, but you have like people that for whatever reason have come across your stuff that are strangers or
Yep.
What's that been like?
That's been pretty cool, but it doesn't surprise me because like I said, we all, if I write about, like my jiu-jitsu book, I wrote about jiu-jitsu, right? And the people would send me a message, oh, I have that same problem. Of course you did. We're on the same path. We're doing the same things.
Yeah.
We're going to have the same problems. And it's, people can relate to it because we're human beings. And that's that, It doesn't matter like what your gender is or what your race is or any of that, You had a girlfriend, you had a problem, you had a boyfriend, you had a problem. Mm-hmm. You tried to solve the problem. You didn't like how you were, so you try to change it. Man, universal.
Yeah.
It's all it's just it's universal stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So besides like yoga, you're doing yoga, you're running a lot.
Yep.
Yoga is obviously a really spiritual thing.
Yeah, for sure.
It's really one of those things that's been around obviously for a really, really long time and has a whole bunch of what has that done for you?
Oh man, yoga's good. See, jiu-jitsu and running, in my mind, they beat your body up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You've done them both,
Mm-hmm.
So you go home sore, you're hurt, and to me, it's a good thing. It's just taxing your body, rebuild it, it's good.
Yeah.
Good thing. But for me, yoga is like the opposite of that. It is rebuilding of the body for me. Like when I go to yoga, it's to fix what I've been doing when I'm not in yoga.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so when I'm doing the poses or whatever, it feels good. But when it doesn't, it's telling me, okay, my knee is hurting. And let me work through this. And the yoga's not hurting my knee. I hurt my knee doing something else, running or jiu-jitsu or whatever. And the yoga is showing me, okay, this is what you need to work on, or this is what you need to take care of, or this is what you need to mend,
Yeah.
This is not working right. So it kind of shows me, okay, you're sore here, your neck hurts, you got to be careful of this, blah, blah, blah. And then I work through that, which is good.
So you get those physical benefits from yoga and the realization, the connection to your body. And,
right. It's the only time for me that it's just me and my body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're doing stuff together, like going on a date. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not trying to push it. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just trying to feel it and understand it, And so I like that thing. I like that part of yoga. And then there's a definite spiritual thing. And I think a lot of times we try to get away from our body. Mm-hmm. Saying, we're not our body. We're this conscious. Well, no, we are our body. Because when we leave, our body is no longer there. That's part of us, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I believe. So instead of negating my body or saying, or working it to death, that's me. That's me. And my body is basically a receptor, right? I receive the world through it.
Yeah.
And if I don't take care of it, what's that reception like? You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain it. So as far as spiritual stuff, that's how I see it. It's a way for me to fine tune my connection. How I receive everything comes through my body.
Through your body.
Yeah, my eyes, my nose, my mouth, my skin. Everything that I see or get or receive comes through that.
So that's a great way to look at it. I mean, your body's that filter, that's
Yeah.
processing all
it is.
outside
It's
influences,
receiving. It's
everything.
a receptor. It takes everything in. And if it isn't working right, what does that do to your reception?
Yeah.
It's not working right.
Yeah. You may be getting something that's really important, but yet
and you miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So
That's a good way to look at
I
it.
love that part about it. I feel and then there's certain rituals in every thing that we do that to me are dogma. They're dogmatic, like Jiu-Jitsu has a lot of dogma in it. Any organized thing has dogma. So every time, I'm going to get in trouble for this, but every time class ends, like in probably 99% of your class, the namaste thing, namaste, and then you're supposed to say namaste back. I can't. I cannot say namaste.
Yeah.
Like, the whatever in me bows to the whatever in you, namaste. And I'm like, But I can say it now, but I have to put a motherfucker at the end of it. So I just say, namaste, motherfucker.
See, my wife and I want to.
Then I can say it because I'm like, that just bugs me.
Yeah, nama-fucking stay.
Yeah, if I say namaste, motherfucker, I feel good about it.
What do you think that is about you?
I don't know, man. I don't want to. I don't know.
You don't want to subscribe to that dogma?
Yeah, I just want to don't want to buy into some stuff. And even though it's probably good stuff, it's not bad. That's a cool thing to say.
Yeah.
It's not bad, but I don't know. There's just a part of me that I'm like, no, I can't do it.
So there's a lot of stuff like that in yoga, a lot of that dogma, like you say,
yeah,
right?
It's,
and
I don't think it's bad. I don't know. Some
you
of
just
it,
don't connect with it.
and it's just not yoga. There's a bunch of things that we do in our culture, in our different cultures, that are just dogma stuff. Mm-hmm. And I don't get with that either. So,
but you've got your own.
Yeah, we've got our own, and if we like it and it makes sense to us, like I tell people, my church is common sense. If it makes sense to me, then I believe in it. Mm-hmm. That's all. I don't care where it's from.
What kind of belief system do you have based around whether it's God or, where's your belief system lie in that stuff?
I don't know. Like I said, if somebody says something to me or I read something or I think something and it makes sense, then that's what I believe. Mm-hmm. And it comes from everywhere, I'll read something. It could be even a book. It could be an old man telling me something. And, if it affects me, like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense, then that's where my belief system, it goes into that box of, what I believe. And that box is always changing. Like, this used to fit in here, but now it doesn't. So it's like a junk drawer. I got to get rid of some of this stuff because there's other stuff coming in that makes more sense. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm going to put that in there. I like that. Yeah, that's cool. And it's from
Did you grow up with religion?
Not really. I'm half white and my mom's white. And so she used to send us with our neighbors to church because they were black. So we used to go to Baptist church. And I loved it. It was awesome because it wasn't like church. Because I've been to some other churches, and black people church is not the same as white people church. I'm sorry to tell you that, but it isn't. And because at least the church we went to, it was like a show.
Yeah.
There was music, there was people fainting, there was, loud noises, there was food, and then I went a couple of times to a Catholic church, and it was different. It just was different.
Yeah.
But I like going to church. I went to a Buddhist church a couple times here in town, and it was like church, old ladies, old men, all dressed up, hair done nice, They listened to a guy talking, then went home. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Do you think that it's important? Like, you see people, obviously, throughout your life, you've had experiences, relationships with people. You've seen a lot of good and bad in people and things like that. Mm-hmm. Do you think that it's important for people to have a belief or a faith in something greater than themselves? And do you think that that's like a necessity for happiness in life?
I don't think it's a necessity. I think it's pretty cool if that helps you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think it's,
And when I say like a belief in something greater than yourself, I'm not talking about just God.
Yeah.
But like just the concept and I mean, like if you were to take Hug Life and the whole philosophy surrounding that, and that was what you placed your belief in and your faith in. Yeah. And that's the way that you moved through life.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with like what you relate to. I've never been one to like, I cannot do like how you see somebody you're a fan of theirs. Mm-hmm. And the idolizing thing, or like in Jiu Jitsu, sometimes there's a really good teacher. He's super good.
Yeah.
And guys like fawn over this dude, and I can't get down with that. I'm like, this is a dude. He's really good at what he does, but that's a man.
Yeah.
This is just a regular cat.
See, I recently had something like that where we went and saw some spiritual guru from India that had come over, right? He was here in the States and he was going around and talking and everything like that. Super cool guy. Yeah. Really funny. Right. Really spiritual. Had some really good stuff that I really liked. But at the end of the day, because like you said, he's just a guy. And there were people there, like big thing was like you weren't supposed to touch him. I don't get that. Yeah. For me, he is just a guy. And he's some guy from India that him and I sync up a lot with some of the beliefs that we have and the way that we look at life.
And you can relate to him, and you maybe like what he says, and maybe he has a different perspective, and maybe he's a genius at something.
Yeah.
He's just like you.
Yeah, he's just a guy.
He's just like you. We're the same, man.
So I've seen a lot of, like, I'll talk to people and people struggle in life, right? And they have all these issues that they're dealing with. Right. And it's like, if they can get to some point where they just start to have faith in something, even if it's themselves initially. Yeah. Where, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you just have to grab a hold of something.
Do you think that's where it starts, though?
What do you mean?
Do you have to have yourself, believe in yourself a little bit? Or do you believe in somebody else first and then come back to yourself?
I think it's probably... Because I think in the end, the goal is to believe in yourself. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like until you can, because that's the whole self-love thing and everything like that. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it starts there for a lot of people. I think
I guarantee it doesn't start there.
They get there eventually. Yeah. But, I look at religion and I like religion for a lot of the teachings and a lot of the different things that it has.
Some of that stuff is cool, man.
It is.
Just read it and you're like, whoa.
It's good stuff. Yeah. But then it gets screwed up by guys. It gets screwed up by men. Yeah. And it's no different than with anything else. I mean, Jiu-Jitsu is a perfect example. Yeah. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Yeah. And then you go to those schools or you run across those guys that misuse it and abuse it and turn it into... Yeah. And so it's no different. But I think it's an important aspect of life to get to that point where you just believe in something and it doesn't really matter what it is.
Yeah. I think there's something to that, until you can kind of find yourself. That to me, that's the major thing. Mm-hmm. Where you sit down with yourself and you're just like, all right, this is what I like this, or I don't like this, and you're confident enough and you're courageous enough to go at that. Yeah.
You feel like that's what you've been doing?
Oh yeah, guaranteed. I'm like, I didn't really give a shit before, but now I really don't give a shit. And it's not a bad I don't give a shit. It's not a negative thing. It's like I don't care about things that maybe a lot of people do care about, you know. I don't care about clothes. I don't care about how much money I have. I don't care about any of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't even watch TV. People are talking about TV shows. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, and I just feel super like confident, and it's not an ego thing either, because I thought, man, are you being arrogant? And it's not an arrogance, because I don't think that I'm better than anybody. I'm just thinking I'm happy with who I am. Like, I'm cool with it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back at what I've been writing, and I'm like, I'm not even that dude anymore. Like, I'm a part of that dude, but I'm not him. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, am I afraid? Like, can I get buck naked right now? I won't. Just for your sake. But
luckily, it's not a video podcast.
But, you know, can I just do these things that I would be afraid to do and nervous to do?
Yeah.
You know, a year ago, half a year, you know, 6 months ago, whatever. Man, no. I mean, there's some things like decorum dictates that, you know, you don't get buck naked, you know, in front of, you know, that's just taste, but that's not fear. And so I just think, you know, anything to believe in, yeah, but you get kind of, kids could be dangerous, you know.
Yeah.
Believing in something that maybe not be the best for you. But as long as it leads back to you, I think. And then here's the funny thing. This is what I think happens. Say you believe in something or someone. Then you kind of discover yourself, and you deal with yourself, and you learn and love yourself. Mm-hmm. And then you know what it turns into? Other people.
Yeah.
So it's a person, maybe a stranger, I don't know. Then it's you. Then it's other people. Because I swear, like Mother Teresa, you know, Martin Luther King, you know, all the people that, Gandhi.
Yeah.
I know they know themselves. I know, and maybe at an early age or something, they know themselves. They found themselves. They know who they are.
Yeah, they were okay with themselves.
After that, then it's about other people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you kind of have to deal with yourself.
Yeah, get out of your own way.
Seems kind of selfish, like, when I started writing, I'm like, man, I don't want to write about myself for this long. This is stupid, you know. It's just selfish. Mm-hmm. But then I started thinking and feeling like, well, I'm doing this to make myself better so that people around me, you know, don't have to deal with some dude who doesn't even know what he is, or he's afraid all the time, or, you know, whatever. So now I feel like I'm good. I'm good with myself. I still got about 30 days of writing. No, 90 days of writing still.
Will that be a year?
Yeah. Well, it's actually going to be more than a year, because I don't write every single day. But of writing, it'll be a year. It'll be 365. So, but I'm this is weird, but I'm over myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm done with that. I don't need, I'm ready to do other stuff. You know what I mean?
Do you think you've gained a lot in that time period?
I guarantee that was probably the most helpful for myself, you know? Mm-hmm. Just kind of analyze and look at it, and then be like, screw this, I'm doing this. I'm just going to do it. And then that's big for me. For me, it was big. It still is.
Do you have anything coming up, like some other big, huge thing that
the
you're going to challenge yourself with?
The biggest thing right now, I want to go to New Zealand.
Really?
Yeah, that's my big, I don't know how I'm going to get there. I have a couple buddies that are like, man, we'll help you get there. And they're okay money-wise, you know. Mm-hmm. But that's not even it. Like, there's so many questions, but I don't let that be an excuse, you know. How am I going to get there? When am I going to get there? You know, who am I going to stay with? Those are important things. But I'm just going to let it happen, man. Yeah. You know what I mean?
What do you want to go there for?
Well, part of the thing when I started is I wanted to leave the country, and I want to teach jiu-jitsu. And so I was thinking about that. And a guy that bought my jiu-jitsu book, we became friends on Facebook. So he had messaged me, and he wanted to restart a jiu-jitsu blog. So he was asking me about it. Yeah. Because I had a blog too at one point. And he had Facebooked me or messaged me that day when I was thinking, where should I go? And he's from New Zealand. And I was like, oh, I'm going to New Zealand. And so after I thought about it, I was in the gym actually. After I thought about it, I went home and I messaged him. I'm like, dude, I want to go to New Zealand and I want to teach a free jiu-jitsu seminar. You know, can I stay on your couch?
There you go.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, man. So now I just got to get there.
Now you just got to figure out how to get there.
Yeah.
You will.
Yeah, I guarantee you I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm definitely going to get there.
That's
some way.
cool.
Yeah. So that's probably my biggest thing, and I want to do that before I finish writing. So I've got, well, at least I want to buy the ticket to get there. You know, I don't actually have to get there, but I want to do that before I finish my 365. And once you think you conquered your fear, you really haven't. I mean, you're always afraid of something.
Yeah.
You know, and something will come up. But now I recognize it. I'm like, man, come on. You know, I just say to myself, okay, you ran a marathon. You know, you can do this.
Yeah.
You know, or you did this already. You know, you snowboarded naked, dude. This is nothing. You know, that kind of stuff. It kind of builds, and like you talk to yourself when that little voice comes up, you smack it down with your experience. You know, now all the stuff you thought about doing that you actually said yes to and you did, it smacks down all your fears. Like, what? This ain't nothing.
Yeah, you got this.
Yeah, I got it. No problem. I got it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to challenge you.
Yeah.
I'm going to challenge you because, like I said, I've been following you and I'm checking out all your stuff. And I mean, you're just doing some really amazing stuff. And it's inspirational for me.
That's nice.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I draw a lot of inspiration from it. But I want you to, I'm going to challenge you to start practicing meditating in whatever way, shape, or form that looks like to you.
What about a rolling meditation?
That's perfect. Because I think it's a misnomer. There's so many misunderstanding of what meditation actually is. It's not just sitting in some funky pose in some tranquil spot up on top of a mountain. That's great when you can do it, but it's a lot of different things and in a lot of different ways. But start that exploration of meditation for what it means for you, and then I want you to learn about your chakras.
Oh, gosh. Can I call them motherfucking chakras?
You can, and you can name them something different. It doesn't matter what it is.
Okay.
But challenge yourself to learn about that a little bit.
You know I'm going to say yes, for sure. I'm going to do it. I'll check it out.
Because I think there'd be parts of that you might resonate and connect with. And like, I mean, everything we've been talking about is like everything else. You just take a little bit.
Yeah. Hey, man, I'll look at it for sure.
Cool.
It's all good.
So people find you on Facebook?
Yeah. So let's see. It's Mark and then Westside Johnson. Mark Westside Johnson, writer, illustrator. So yeah, if anybody's interested.
Yeah.
And I plan on writing no matter what, you know.
Yeah, even after the 365's done. Because
that's when the real shit's going down, you know. Like, I quit my job, now what, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I like it. It's good for me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, man.
All right. No sweat. I'm a motherfucking shot. Big brown man going down a mountain at night.